Welcome to the Paisans Podcast. We're your hosts, the brothers from other mothers, Dante, Dave, and Sark. Join us as we talk about current events, our wives, kids, or whatever else life is throwing at us this week. With the Paisans, you're with family.
Actually, Dave, I wanted to follow up on what we were just talking about before we started recording, because I think there's something that I'm learning. And we were talking about getting called into meetings and things like that. And sometimes those things happen and you have to get into it. Like you just got to be there because you have to play your role. And I'm also learning that you can, sometimes you can just like decline to have and say you're doing things. Now, I understand there's times where you just can't do that.
Yeah.
I watched what was it called? Mad Men? With like all the marketing thing. Was it called Mad Men?
Oh, the show. Yeah. With John Hamm.
With John Hamm.
Yes.
A bunch of years ago, I watched that. And one of the things that used to drive me crazy during the show was that he would just get up and leave and be gone. And people are looking for him and they're like, I don't know. I can't find him. And he was out doing whatever. Sometimes he was actually doing research. A lot of times he was out with a woman or something. But he never apologized for not being available. His attitude was, yeah, I'm worth so much because my time is worthwhile and you're not going to get my time for nothing. Now, he obviously is able to deliver, which is why he's able to have that attitude. And one of the things I'm learning is that, to have the ability to deliver something like that, you do need to get your head straight. And so if that means you need to take time to meditate, you need to take time to walk the dog, which might be kind of the same thing. You need time to like get out, give yourself some space, take a breath. If you don't do that, like a day like today, what I had to do is not good. Going 11 straight hours is just not nearly as productive as it might feel. You're busy, but not necessarily productive. And I'm learning the value of being able to say, no, actually, I'm not available. You can follow me up after this call. I'm doing a much better job too of delegating. Like,
Yeah.
you can handle this. You don't need me on this call. Like, that's about letting go. The more I can let go and have people around who can really do the work, and I can trust them to do the work, then that frees my headspace up. So I don't have to think about their jobs and I can actually do my job. I'm not saying it's easy, but as I've leaned into that, it is really rewarding. And what's amazing is actually I do much better. I do better work. Everybody around me is like, this is great. Like it's just like, it's the opposite of what you might think. The part of me that wants to cling to it, I can't miss this meeting, or oh my gosh, they're calling me and I have to be available. The part of me that goes, no, you know what? This was an impromptu meeting. I'm allowed to be in the middle of something. And so I'm in the middle of something, right? And my judgment is that whatever I'm doing is more important than getting into this meeting that was unplanned. That is could very well be a very reactive conversation. That wouldn't be necessary if everyone had been proactive along the way, not to say, so all this to say, I'm really leaning into that headspace and feeling really rewarded by it. And that's been real growth for me, which is just a new area of like, I don't need to be busy. Being busy is not productive. Is not the same as being productive.
And the longer you're sitting there, the harder it is to peel away. The more you feel like you can't peel away. But to your point, like the more you just start to spin, you lose efficiency and productivity. You're just spinning on the same things versus walking away. It's like inaction is action. You just go and do something else. And suddenly you're thinking about it in a different way. I've literally come up with like bright ideas, big bright ideas, doing something completely different.
All the research shows you that that's how you can get creative. Like you can get into a zone when you're doing work, like you get into a flow and you can like really crank through a lot of work. But if you're in the middle of, if you're constantly being peppered with tasks, like menial tasks and trying to accomplish menial tasks, you're never getting into a flow state where you're thinking or able to separate yourself enough that your mind can drift the way that it needs to come up with that innovative idea or that different perspective on a problem. Yes. What's a challenge right now, and this is, I'm sure you guys experience this too, is the tasks that should be menial are so difficult that they take up all your time. And you very quickly found yourself caught up in a web of menial tasks because you need to submit the form for this guy so you can get that hiring rec out there. But the form you tried to submit wouldn't go because the PDF you tried to upload is too big, because the PDF it'll only take a PDF that's this big, and every PDF you try and make is too big for that, right? And you're like, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm dealing with. I'm trying to make smaller PDFs. It's like I have to go make, a decision on whether we're going to invest in a $500,000 piece of software, but I'm busy trying to condense PDFs down to a small enough thing to upload it so I can get the goddamn job rec out there. This is not a real problem that I've dealt with, but this is exactly the type of problems that we deal with, right?
Hello, Peter. What's happening? We have sort of a problem here. Yeah, you apparently didn't put one of the new cover sheets on your TPS reports.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. I forgot.
Yeah. You see, we're putting the cover sheets on all TPS reports now before they go out. Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah. Yeah, I have the memo right here. I just forgot. But it's not shipping out till tomorrow, so there's no problem.
Yeah. If you could just go ahead and make sure you do that from now on, that would be great. And I'll go ahead and make sure you get another copy of that memo. Okay?
Yeah, no, I have the memo. I've got it. It's right.
Hello, Phil.
I mean, even if it's not a real problem, I mean, you're 100% right. And just going back to the whole thing you said about declining meetings or something like that. I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
First off, it's like, I was just telling you guys, like this week, impromptu meetings just pop up while I'm trying to do some of these things to do exactly what you said and kind of decompress, or just, step away so I can be more productive, right? Walk my dog, or go to the gym, right? Now, usually I try to go to the gym in the morning, but, yesterday, the day was just too busy in the morning. So I just all of a sudden I found myself sitting there, doing all these menial tasks. And then before you know it, I was like, all right, I think I have an hour, or whatever, hour and a half. And I was like, let me just try to run out real quick. While I'm doing that, I was out for maybe, 45 minutes or so. And all of a sudden I'm starting to get calls on my cell phone about trying to be tagged into a meeting, right? So I saw something on LinkedIn. This is probably a few months ago at this point, and it was something about, I'm going to very much paraphrase it, but the general idea was about one of the tasks of good leadership is just basically saying no to useless meetings, where you're just no, this is kind of exactly what you just said, Dante. I'm not needed on this. You figure it out. Let's reconvene at a better time for everyone, or something like that, or just tell me what happened, type of thing. And there will be a lot of people who try to suck up your time at work with these meetings that are just useless, quite frankly, just useless. And if you can have the power to say no, and it is difficult. I'm very guilty of not saying no to meetings. I feel like, if someone says hey, we need to meet, I'm like, okay, yeah, fine, let's do it. I feel like I have to do it.
I know what you mean.
But another thing kind of going to that is a few years ago, when I was more of an individual contributor at my job, I would just work nonstop, not take lunches, work, start to finish at my day with very minimal breaks, go to the bathroom, maybe get something to eat, but very, go to the cafeteria, just grab something and then come back up at my desk type of thing. And my personal life was really suffering because of that.
Sure.
And, relationships that I had then were impacted, and it I would go home and I just wouldn't be fun. I would be kind of a miserable person, and without even realizing it. So I don't know, a few years ago, I guess, I think it must have been after I went to therapy. I kind of was all right, I need to make a point of stepping away, at some point during the day, and not just be so implanted in my work seat, just trying to work the whole time. So it helped that, shortly after, around that time, or shortly after that, I got bullet. So I was I kind of forced myself to be I got to make sure I take bullet out when, especially when I'm working from home, but I also work very close to my house. So I run home, walk him. I make a point of doing that as much as
having
I
a
can.
dog really does help.
Yeah, I do that. I try to make a point of doing that every day. There are definitely days where I don't, which is again, that's bad. I would say that's bad.
No.
But
Yeah, but
sometimes
they're going to be here, and there's going to be days Dante, you have a launch tomorrow. I mean, there's going to be those times, and
yes,
it's worth putting in the time and doing what you have to do. It's just when it becomes perpetual is the issue.
It's so at the risk of sounding like I'm talking out of both sides of my face, Dave and I have been talking about a lot of different things recently, but this theme of making the appropriate sacrifice has come up, and we talk a lot about different people in our lives and who you want to be with and who, you're less inclined to be with and why that may be under certain circumstances. And again, we continue to kind of come down to this root thing of those who can make the appropriate sacrifice succeed. They actually get they move, they evolve, they raise themselves up. And so I totally recognize that you have a big project going on at work and you have a deadline. There's going to be a sacrifice that has to be made, and that might be some sleep over the course of a couple of days, And of course, we always have to kind of bring ourselves back to what's the norm. When your sacrifice generally in life should be you get up every day and you're at work and you focus on work, and you're not doing whatever you'd rather be doing all day long, which is what you're sacrificing, So I get like all those things where I've found it's really advantageous, Stephen, you were just alluding to this, is like, first of all, I came up through the service industry, and I know you all have worked service jobs too. Mike, I know you waited tables with me. Waiting tables is the ultimate example of the service industry. And waiting tables is you're available right now and you respond as quickly as possible. You don't like get to it when you can get to it because you have other things you need to do. That's not the service industry. So when you're on, you're on. And I think that there's a mindset that comes in that. So even in my corporate jobs, I came up through the service positions, like sort of a customer service job in one of my first jobs, but I kind of carried that mindset through jobs upon jobs. And now I'm at this place where, Dave, I'm not an individual contributor anymore. And it's like, when you come to the office, you project that energy of an individual contributor, even if you're not. It's how people are going to treat you.
Yeah.
And when you can get to the point where you start to realize, like, hang on a second, I have more authority than maybe I thought I did. I can actually make decisions and stand behind them as long as I can justify them. That's what I'm paid to do, is have good judgment, make decisions, be held accountable. And if I can let go of the things that I used to feel were I used to feel, what's the wording, represented whether I had done good or not, which is almost like a quantity of widgets I could crank out in a given day. It's like my job is not about volume of widgets anymore. It's not about the number of tasks I can accomplish. It's about the outcomes that we can achieve. Like, how do we get everybody aligned on a certain thing and actually make it happen, as opposed to talking about it. And then 2 weeks later, somebody goes, hey, whatever happened to this? Nothing after that last meeting. We're talking about it still. Right. So the value is in driving the thing forward. It isn't necessarily being the person who flips the switch, or the person who writes up the text, or writes up the content, or publishes it, or whatever it may be. And so letting go of that and realizing, like, I don't need to do it all for this to be successful. In fact, if I can let go and let the people who can do it, the work becomes, for me, what I've realized is the work now for me is, all right, who that I'm working with can I trust and who can't I trust? Because the ones that I can trust, they're good. They're helping us. They're making us move forward. The ones I can't trust, those are the ones that it's like they become my job. Thinking about what they're not going to think of, thinking about what they're going to miss, making sure that things don't slip through the cracks. And now I can't be my optimal self. So I suppose the ideal scenario is you get all the people around you can trust, in which case you can like look up and stop worrying about like what's, or look down if you want to think of it in a less hierarchical way. Anyway, all this to say, really leaning into that feeling and learning to let go. And as you said, Dave, to say no to certain conversations, it's unbelievable not only how empowering it is, but how much it can reveal. Like, who are the people you say, no, I can't join this meeting, you figure it out? Who are the people who are paralyzed and just reschedule with you and don't try to move it forward at all? And who are the people who are like, thank you, we'll knock this out and I'll let you know what's going on?
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit, Dave, because we were talking about people who who are basically turnstiles. Like they have a problem, a decision. So they set a meeting with you so they can present it to you so you can make the decision.
Right.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, well, first to that point, yes. I'm in a position where I can make decisions, which is great, and I am grateful for that. But sometimes it's like you have to just like kind of learn by making the decisions, right? Like I think that's part of it. So I think part of that comes with experience.
Yeah.
You were saying this a little bit, Dante, in terms of who are the people that you can trust, and then who are the people that at the same time when you do give them that responsibility, they're like, thank you. Like they're the ones who are actually saying like, thank you. Like I either needed to hear that you believed in me or what it like, but when you delegate to people and then they actually do it, it's like, first, that gives them a bit of a purpose in a lot of instances. So they're sitting there like, okay, well, like, when in my old job, like my old boss used to just do everything for me because they were the successful individual contributor, and then they didn't know how to become a leader, and they just continued doing what they always did that got them to the success. But really, it's like if you can just empower the people to actually do the job for you. Like a lot of times they're like, "Thank you for doing that." Like and then they're like, "I'm so grateful that you're here for like that you support me and all this." And it's like that's actually pretty
Yes.
rewarding too when people say stuff like that to you. It's like,
Yes.
so
And it opens up avenues for them too, because all of a sudden now they feel empowered to say, oh, well, I actually sort of had this idea. What if we tried this? And you might be like, I love that idea.
right,
I'm like, really? Oh my gosh. Now they own it. They
Yeah.
want to drive it,
Yeah.
And like you said, the older I get, the more reward I get from seeing other people succeed, like mentoring other people.
Yes.
Were you going to say something more about, were you going to say that?
Well, no, I actually kind of just, you're like almost reading my mind. Like I agree. Like it's, if you can, I've been saying this for a couple of years now at work. It's like, if people can grow because of something maybe I showed them or I allowed them to do, it's like, I take a lot of pride in that and I love that. And I celebrate that. I try to celebrate that at least. And those are the people that when you do give them that, they also will do anything for you, right? Like they will like run through a brick wall for you. And that's cool too.
It's a great point, Dave, because that type of stuff follows you beyond the current job. Like those are professional relationships that you have for life. Because I get that too. People that look back and people that I say that to mentored me and people that I have mentored, that sticks with you for a long time. And it should, you know what I mean? It's because it goes beyond representing your company. It's like your personal brand, essentially. It's who you are professionally, But I was going to say that as a manager, you have the human element that you're dealing with is just the human fear of making mistakes. You're newer to the workforce, right? You've got to make some mistakes to get comfortable with it. And then there's navigating company culture, and I've worked for companies where people are afraid to make mistakes because they see what happens when you do. You're either called out, you're embarrassed, you could lose your job, whatever it is. It's kind of interesting too. There are like subcultures in departments as well. We have functional subcultures based on their leaders.
There is a macro culture, and then there are microcultures, and they're very much leadership based. That's what I see. And there's absolutely macro culture elements, and then there are a lot of individualized cultures at the senior leadership level. So each senior leader who has like a functional team that, whole team that they lead, not just functional, whole team that they lead. You see cultures that differ across departments. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you talk to the people in charge and you see the reflection.
Especially big companies. I mean, big companies are going to have that because there's so many people, right? So I don't think this is abnormal or unique to any of our situations. It's
not at all.
Like I feel the exact
Totally
same
not.
way. It's just I think there is subcultures within certain departments, teams, whatever you want to call them.
Yes, more and more I start to appreciate this concept of energy. And when I say energy, I mean like the personal energy that each of us brings to the office, to the meetings and things. The energy that I bring to the office is the energy that I attract. And I think is the same is true for everybody I see working around me. It's like, if at times I was too people pleasing and to self-sacrificing and not respecting my own boundaries, not maintaining and respecting my own boundaries, well, I was going to attract people who did the same thing, who were the same way. And I think that's why you get that culture, because you have a senior leader and they're going to naturally attract certain types of talent. It's going to be certain people who imagine you install a new senior leader and the person has 5 people reporting to them. Well, if 3 of those people are like, I cannot work with this energy, they're gone. And then that person's going to hire 3 people who match their energy.
That's right.
Now, the change begins. So I see a lot more now as the older I'm getting and the more experience I have, why leadership is responsible for everything, because it really does come down to leadership. It's hard to articulate because you can't draw a straight line from, a person at an associate level having a miserable day and the behavior of their senior leader. You really can't draw a straight line between it. But if you've worked for a while, it's like you see it immediately.
Yeah,
You see it immediately. I have to say, I've been leaning into shifting that energy that I'm bringing and pointing out the things that, like, we're talking about now. It's like raising them up straight up, just bringing up issues, and delegating and trusting people, letting go. Let me tell you, man, letting go is so, so difficult. It's so difficult. It's just such a broad term too. What do I mean by letting go? Letting people make decisions, like not micromanaging people, like not being up people's ass every minute of every day, double checking every decision they make, and giving people the chance, taking a bit of risk and giving people the chance to fail.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
But it's also like the key.
I think if you give people a chance to fail, sometimes they might. I mean, it's always a possibility, but they'll learn from that situation. I mean, I'm sure we can all think about times in our careers or personal lives, whatever. You took a chance and you failed, right? Like, and then what do you do the next time you're in that situation? You probably learn from that. Some failures are bigger than others, obviously, but um, yeah, I think you have to, because that'll give you the experience that you need to or the confidence or the whatever to try again and just get better, right? And I think it's all related to what we're talking about.
What kind of reactions do you get when you quote let go? Like, so let's use meetings as an example. I'm assuming some people are not happy with that, so I'm guessing some part of letting go is also just learning that you're not going to make everybody happy, but over time your actions and your results will tell the story.
I think you said it, dude. It's like it is about taking the risk and trusting yourself that over time you're going to prove through your actions and through your competence that it's okay, that most of the time you're going to make the right choice as to whether or not you need to be at a certain meeting. And you'll also start to set boundaries for other people where they'll start to ask themselves before they send you an invitation for every meeting, whether they need to send you.
All the companies that I've worked for over the last X number of years, I mean, very meeting heavy. I think that's a symptom of so many companies.
You have meetings for the sake of having meetings, and you have meetings to prepare for other meetings. And it's why? And exactly to your point, Sark, it's like, could you just send an email instead? And like, okay, maybe we resolve this in email, and actually maybe we get it done quicker than having this hour-long meeting where we just stare at each other and we talk about complete nonsense and like moving paper from left side of the desk to the right side of the desk, like Dante said.
Really, I find a lot of people struggle with just where to even start.
Yeah. Very often people will come to you with what they think is the solution, right? So like,
yes.
So the best example I can give is related to specifically to the work that I do, because it's a real example, right? So it's always like, well, we need a page on the intranet that's going to do this and this and this for us. And it's like, well, hold on. What are you doing? And then they describe to you what they're doing. And you're like, okay, who is this for? Well, these three, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay. So by the time you ask a series of questions that you've learned over time are the questions that you need to kind of figure out where to put them. You're like, okay, yeah, I see what you think. you don't need a website. Here's what I would suggest we do. And then you offer, and it takes time and experience and a certain level of sophistication to get to the point where the person can come to you with the solution and you learn how to say, I hear you. I see what you're trying to do. I want to work with you. I'm allying with you. I'm not going to fight against you. Here's a way I would suggest we do it because you're trying to accomplish this, this, and this. And look, wouldn't that do that even actually better than what you're saying? And if you can do that well, then they're like, oh my gosh, yeah. But what I find is, and I know I suffered from this when I first started, it's very hard to get to that point. Like it takes time to get sophisticated enough to hear the person, especially if they're a senior leader who's coming to you with this solution and not feel like, okay, how do we implement this solution? As opposed to, hold on, let me find out what you're trying to do and give you advice based on really my knowledge, what we're dealing with. That takes time and sophistication, you know, and I've gotten much better at that, obviously, like the older that I get. But that I think is one of many challenges that I've seen, especially with some of the younger, you know, the less experienced people who we have with, because in fact, most of the time people come to you and they're asking for the thing that they don't need, or they're reporting the wrong problem. And you just need to answer a couple questions. One of the things I've often been teaching is part of what we do is detective work. A big part of what we do is detective work. Mm-hmm. The request comes in. They say they're trying to do a thing. That's not even actually what they're trying to do. I'm trying to get into the intranet. No, they're actually not even trying to get into the intranet. They're trying to get into the HR system, or they're trying to get into whatever. It's like, and look, I've learned when I was younger, oh my God, the users so, they suck. They don't know this. It's like, no. That's the wrong attitude. You have to understand, for these people, they don't do this all the time. So
that's right.
The real truth is something about what we're doing is not simple enough, or it's too confusing. Or we just have to understand, guys, people are going to report a problem. You have to ask a question or two just to make sure that that's really the problem they're reporting.
The key to client consulting too is like asking those same questions, because a lot of like savvy clients think they know what they're asking for. And a lot of times on the receiving end of that, it feels like that's so easy. It's like, oh, this client's great, right? They just tell me exactly what they need. I don't really have to put thought into it, you know, but you do, because sometimes it's super dangerous when they're asking for specific things because no one's really asking the question of like, what problem are you trying to solve?
Exactly. There's a book I read a few years ago, and I'm going to try and find it if I can. I want to get the right name for it. Beyond Collaboration Overload. That's what it's called. Beyond Collaboration Overload, How to Work Smarter, Get Ahead, and Restore Your Well-Being. And it's not what I thought it was going to be about. I thought it was going to be about like how to use platforms better and so on and so forth. No. It's really about what we're talking about, which is asking questions and not just taking action. And actually, a lot of it is directed towards senior leaders, and senior leaders understanding that a lot of times they just ask a question off the cuff. They don't really care about the answer, but the people below them, dude, they hear it and they're like, oh my God, you know, Jane wants this. You're like, guys, hang on a second. Jane asked a question.
Using it for? I don't know. She just said she wanted it, you know?
Yeah, it's 100%. And they don't even, and you're like, relax. Let's go back and ask her what she wants that for. And you go and you ask, and she's like, oh, honestly, no, if that's a pain, don't worry about it. I just thought if we had one available. And you're like, thank you. It's a huge pain. And somebody was about to go drop $1 million to try and get it. You know, it's like, and they'd be like, oh my God, that's crazy. Why wouldn't somebody come ask me? You're like, because for no reason I can understand, people think you're a monster or something. Like, people are afraid to ask you a question. I'm 100% serious. I've had these amazing experiences recently where I'm just asking the obvious question to somebody in a senior leadership position, and everybody's like, no, you can't. It's like,
yeah.
How could you not ask this question?
What are they going to rip your head off? You know what I like? Literally,
and the senior leaders are like, that's the right question, or thank you for asking. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. Or like, they're humble. They want to actually they're very conscientious. To get to that level, most of the time, you have to be highly conscientious. And I will say this about the company where I work. The senior leaders are highly conscientious. They really do, as far as I can tell, want to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you challenge them or ask them a question that you think they might take as a challenge, and that's more often what it is than anything else. It's like people perceive that someone will take offense, and it's like, I don't know why that's offensive. I think there's 100 ways you could ask this question that wouldn't be disrespectful or offensive. And then you ask it, and senior leader's like, that's a great question. Actually, let's figure that out.
And there's also some level of laziness, I think, too. Like for some people, I used to manage some people that I felt they would rather hit their head against that brick wall of dropping $1 million to fulfill that request than to go have the conversation. It's just like something else I have to do. Or I could probably get that request done by 5, but if I have to call this person, God knows. So it becomes much more transactional because it's just easier not to ask the question.
Well, I know we're kind of at time, and I know that we can't stay on too much longer, but I appreciate that we took the time today to actually talk about something work related.
Kind of ironically, the time limit that we're talking about is because I have to get ready to do stuff for work tomorrow and prepare mentally for work. So it's like we just had this conversation about work, and
yep.
Now I'm off to do that thing tomorrow.
But I mean, I appreciate that, Dave, seriously, because you should, per our conversation, like, take the time you need to get your head straight, dude. It's totally, I respect that boundary 100%. 100%.